Hark, 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 hark. I think that's the Peacock Man, Harold the H. Ark Peacock with historyouthere.com. Hey, Harold, how are you, mate?
Fantastic, Danny, and it was a very seductive type ark you're giving this morning.
Yes, well, sometimes it's mating season for the peacock.
Yeah.
Now, they're down around Currumbin trying to jump those wild turkeys and bush turkeys. Now, listen, you do you find a lot of good things when you go in metal detecting, and you've been around someone's home and you've found a bit of a gruesome past.
Yeah, that's right. I was invited to metal detect around a house at Sunnybank. Now, the house was built in 1923, and I found a number of relics that predated the house itself. Wow. There were coins going back 110 years, a number of really old brass buckles, as well as a decorative scarf buckle and a pocket watch cover, both from the Depression in the 1930s. Now, the man to live in the house first proved to be a total mystery. His name was Christian Peter Fricke, and he was born in Surrey Hills in Sydney in 1877 to parents from Denmark. His life then became clandestine. You see, he started going by different names, sometimes Christian, other times Peter, and his surname changed from Fricke to Hansen. His sister mourned his death in 1913 when he was murdered in Western Australia. He'd been shot and taken away in a wheelbarrow. But that was the wrong Peter Hansen, and our man was very much alive.
Right.
So by the time he got married in Ayr in North Queensland in 1914, he was going by the name of Christian Nugent. Now, a family story suggests that he took on the name Nugent because he was the new gent in town. Now, apparently so, yeah. Now, Christian raised his family in the Sunnybank home from the 1920s. Now, sometimes vials of opium were found there from the Chinese gardeners across the road back then. Now, he was a diver working on the pylons under bridges, including those at Ipswich, Redbank and 1 Mile. He wore those suits, with big brass diving helmets.
And the big head on it.
That's right.
Head like a larrikin's hat.
Exactly right. But in 1947, it wasn't a larrikin, it was the Gruesome Ipswich connection. That's when that comes in.
What happened?
You see, his 17-year-old son, also called Christian, was a volunteer lifeguard down at Broadbeach, sort of like you, Danny.
Yeah, lifesaver,
Yeah, now one weekend he found a corpse in the surf. He reported the body to the Southport police and then confusion reigned. You see, the lifeguards were indeed looking for a body of a man, but the police said that wasn't him. It was someone else.
So let him float off again. Just let him
Well, it was a particularly gruesome find, you see, because it had no arms and had been severely mauled. So confusion continued for days.
Yes.
Now, finally, an Ipswich dentist came forward and he identified a single gold filling as being his handiwork. Now, and the body was identified as Ipswich-born young Frank was a sapper in the Australian Army and was on leave from his posting in Mackay when he drowned. His father worked at the T.C. Byrne department store here at Ipswich, and they all lived at 8 Crib Street, and the house is still there.
You're kidding me. I'm going to go around, knock on the door and say, I want to check your joint out. Is okay?
That's right, but I better get from Ipswich back to Sunnybank.
Right.
You see, there have been 2 deaths in that house, including most recently that of Christian, the lifesaver, in 1994. The current owner has now lived there for over a quarter of a century, and he himself has a spooky story. That's because the yard today, in the yard there's a really long shed, and in its time it's housed a large coffin collection, and parked inside right now is a 1939 hearse.
I know whose house it is, but I won't say.
Yeah, Danny, you know the person who lives there. He's none other than the acclaimed horror historian, Jack Sim. And he does those fantastic ghost stories.
And he's got the hammer that killed the bloke back in 1953, and the story was in the paper the other day. They were socialites. And the wife organised the bloke to smash the bloke's head in with a hammer, and Jack's got the hammer. So imagine that, bringing a girl home saying,
Jack is there with all that history. He's living the dream, surrounded by all that history of his own.
I know.
But he's also got the history, mystery and deaths of the first owners, including the story of that gruesome Ipswich body.
But he doesn't get spooked by it all.
No, he doesn't. But Danny, we should. I think that's because he does pay respect, and we should pause to remember young Frank McNeil from Ipswich, whose demise is now part of his house history. Now, Frank's name is on on Australia's Roll of Honour, and will be projected onto the outside of the Australian War Memorial in just a few weeks' time.
Wow!
If any listeners are down in Canberra, you'll be able to see it at 4:12 a.m. local time on the morning of Wednesday, the 20th of October. And I have no doubt, Danny, that Jack will be poised to remember the young man who was part of the story of his own house. And anyone listening should get on one of those ghost tours there in Ipswich. They're fantastic stories.
Yeah, but that young bloke died in 1994 in that house.
That was a lifesaver. Yeah, he died there. And his mother died in the house as well.
You know why?
No, I don't know. Maybe shock from 50 years earlier when he pulled out that mauled body. I don't know.
Oh. They were lifesavers, by the way. Volunteers. Lifeguards are paid.
Correct.
Thank you.
Totally
all right. That is.
He's a life member down there too.
Is he a life? What's his name?
What's his name? Yeah, that was Christian Nugent. He's a life member down at the Broadbeach. So hello to everyone down at Broadbeach.
Yeah,
Lifesaving Club.
Life, yeah. Now listen. HistoryOutThere.com, that'll be up by tomorrow. You can read the story yourself again. Really great yarns. You're the best storyteller in Australian digital radio.
Well, Danny, we should give a shout out to Craig and Wendy down at Muddy Creek in Victoria, because they love the stories and they'll be warming up their Mind metal detectors as we speak, because they never miss your show, Danny.
Oh, well, they got a bit of class. Good on you there. There he is, Harold the Peacock.